PHL 17 presents In Focus, a look at the issues affecting the Philadelphia region. Now your host, Steve Highsmith.
Good morning, I'm Steve Highsmith and welcome to In Focus. The Philadelphia School District has begun what seems like an annual painful process of scraping and begging for money, of cutting or rearranging, and of explaining its lack of success in educating many of its students. We'll hear from a grassroots voice in the long struggle over public education. And later on this edition of In Focus, we'll also look at the public advocacy of a woman who lives with ALS and hear what she has been learning and what she hopes more of us will be doing to cure this neurodegenerative disease. With me now is Helen Gim, co-founder of Parents United for Public Education. She is also a board member of Asian Americans United. She recently was honored at the White House with the Cesar Chavez Champion for Change Award. She is also a mother of 3 children. Helen, good to see you. Thanks
Good to see you. Good morning.
When you look at the school district right now this spring, what's your view of its situation?
Well, I guess I would say that this is 3 years of a deliberative and focused attempt to undermine public ed, not just in Philadelphia, but across the state of Pennsylvania. And I think we're living with the consequences of the relentless state underfunding of public education, as well as, to be honest, the city not living up to its share of making up for that gap.
If you're correct, are the reasons in your mind the same for the state's action and the city's action, or are there different reasons for underfunding?
Well, I think that they're slightly different. I mean, I don't think that the State Department of Education has been shy in saying that education was not a top issue for them. And, you know, I think that they made a bold move in the first year of their administration to cut $1 billion out of state funding and to not really make up for any of that deficit over the following 3 years. That has had just enormous consequences. I don't actually think that many schools in Pennsylvania are actually upliving or holding itself to the state constitution and the Pennsylvania state code. We're seeing schools that aren't able to make their minimum requirements. We had controversies about schools where principals had to forge grades because they can't find enough teachers. We've got some of the city's best schools, including Masterman High School, for example, which had 99 staff people in the year before Tom Corbett took office and is down now to 58 staff people today. And I don't think that you can make that up. I don't think that the state has been thoughtful about the consequences of it. And I don't think Philadelphia is unique. I think it's been schools, districts all across the state of Pennsylvania, which makes Pennsylvania one of the major battlegrounds for whether this governor will be able to retain his governorship. In terms of the city level, I think that the city has not really done its part in living up to making up for the state gap here. And what we're seeing is that school districts all across the state of Pennsylvania have actually done things like, not that I'm proposing it, but they have had to double property taxes. They have had to massively increase burdens on local entities, which is one of the reasons why the voter antipathy towards the governor is so strong around public education. But the city of Philadelphia has really not done its part to make sure that the gaps we're seeing at the state level are being at least significantly addressed at the city level. I know we can do better at the city level, and we have to this year.
Many of the critics of the school district, though, will say that money is not being spent at the same level because the money isn't there. The recession happened and we're still living with the consequences of that recession. Mm-hmm. And the second reason is that money spent was not spent well. That even at that level several years ago, there was a significant portion of the city population that was not getting a good education. They were not graduating from high school, and many of the ones who were graduating weren't being competitive with their peers in other high schools. So what do you say to those critics that say, one, we don't have the money, and two, the money that was being spent isn't spent efficiently?
Yeah, well, let me go with number two. The money that, I don't think that there's anybody who believes that spending less money on Philadelphia will improve its circumstances. I mean, anybody who wants to stand up and say that, be my guest, but they can't be validated by anything we've seen in the school district. Two, you're really not holding the right people accountable for the concerns about whether money is being spent correctly. The people who are not being held accountable are the leadership within the district about, you're not holding accountable the governor and state legislators, city council, and others who have made sure that they're not following their guidelines either. The people who are being held accountable are children in our schools, including at Central High School, for example, which has one counselor for every 1,200 students. In comparison, Abington has 10 counselors for its staff of 1,700 students, so 1 to 170 in Abington, 10 counselors at a school of 1,700. You've got Central High School, one of the jewels in the school district of Philadelphia in the state of Pennsylvania, with 2 counselors covering 2,400 students. Seniors at Central High School didn't get their college applications in on time. They are not the ones who are to be held accountable for problems that we can't deal with as leadership and as people who are responsible and have a collective responsibility for addressing this situation.
Do you count the problems at Bartram High School recently, the violence that has been happening there? Do you count that as being a product of not enough funding? Or is there a culture of lack of respect for authority or a culture of chaos that exists, unfortunately, in many of our schools?
Bartram's a great example. And it's just outrageous what's happened at Bartram. I think anybody who sees a staff person or someone physically injured in the way that, someone gets their skull fractured in an all-out assault, and the complaints that we've had from Bartram began at the beginning of this year. We got formal complaints in from parents who were outraged over the level of violence, the chaos that was going on, but it was being echoed in other schools. It just maxed out at Bartram. The thing to think about in Bartram, though, was that in 2011, FY 2011, which was before the governor's budget went into play, Bartram had 148 staff. It opened in September of 2013 with 101 staff. And I'm just saying that when you lose 1/3 of your staff in less than 2 years school time, that you are just asking for trouble. And it's not to say that kids are violent or they can't be controlled. We have lots of issues, but you definitely cannot do it if you have 1/3 less the staff. They went from 91 teachers down to 63, 4 assistant principals down to 1, elimination of support staff. This is a very, very serious issue with very serious consequences for the wrong people, which are the children, the staff people, and the families in the school system.
What do you say then to the School Reform Commission and to Superintendent Height? Do you look at them as simply trying to manage a decline? Why aren't they speaking with the same, in your mind at least as from what I hear, the same level of anger at the powers that be?
Well, for the School Reform Commission, they're appointed by the governor and by the mayor. And it's one of the things which is, after 12 years of a state takeover that's done nothing but chaos, and we're in our 3rd bankruptcy and multiple others, this experiment has run its course. We know that from school systems all across the country where state takeovers really do very little. They, in fact, destabilize systems and undermine them. They leave them in financial chaos or in situations that are worse than they are before. I think that the SRC is done. They do not have at this point, they do not have the financial connections to be able to get us the money and resources that we need. Clearly, they don't have any political clout in Harrisburg or with the state because they've made a request last year for several $100 million, which they did not get, and they're making another request for several $100 million, and we don't really see, frankly, a lot of movement. And finally, I just think that they lack any level of moral authority here. I mean, when you see situations like Bartram, not a single SRC member showed up at Bartram High School, by the way, to make a statement about how they believe in safety. And, they talk about how safety needs to be the #1 concern of this city and for our children and for the families within schools. We know it's the #1 driver of why people leave the public schools. So why would an SRC member walk away from Bartram? Why would there not have been a public statement made at that school to talk about standing up for teachers, to stand up for communities and for young people there who are waiting for a level of moral authority? So I feel like the SRC has really vacated its moral authority. It does not have political or financial clout, and I don't really see why we have it.
And as for the superintendent, is he just part of that?
I think that Superintendent Height is in a complicated situation, and he is pretty universally liked by many people in terms of his ability to respond to people in a very personal way and a meaningful way. But I think at this point, he is the first superintendent since the state takeover to have $0 attached to anything in his agenda or budget, despite asking for it. And I really do not know whether it makes sense to have a superintendent who, despite all the accolades that he will get from city council, who, you know, will praise him and say this and that, and the state will praise, if we're not getting money and resources and our schools are going to the situation that we're looking at for September, as well as living through what we did this year, I don't know why you would stay. And I don't think that it's become effective anymore.
You are connected to a charter school. You know, the charter schools are public schools, but they are not traditional public schools. They're charter schools in the public school system. Is that part of the solution, or have we pretty much maxed out where we're going to be there?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to think about what charter schools were originally intended to be and what they have become today, and not just in Philadelphia, but in particular urban cities across the country. So, you know, the original vision of charter schools were to be an innovative center to try different things. They were actually founded by AFTs, the American Federation of Teachers, as a unique place to kind of build and grow and to think through some strategic challenges. For example, the school that I founded takes a good look at multilingualism, immigrant families who are becoming a growing and rapidly growing part of our city as well as our school district, and we're trying to find different ways of working with families and to think about things strategically. But what they've become now is in lieu of public education, and so we spend $700 million a year on charter schools. We have 86 charter schools, which are their own independent school district, in fact, and I would challenge anybody in this city to name even 20% of the names of these schools, their addresses, their their presidents, and the dates of their public meetings. We can't keep track of them. We have a charter office of 8 people for 86 schools. We're seeing financial scandals. You know, the academic performances are all over the map, and there's no regulations or caps. There's not really a lot of oversight. Just recently, the NCAA announced that it will no longer accept K-12 charter schools, which includes the largest charter school in Pennsylvania, Agora Cyber, because they don't even meet minimum requirements. And let me just say that that's from the NCAA. So, you know, that is saying a lot, that we have really failed in the mission of what these charter schools are going to be. And I think that a lot of people have looked at them as a cheap, fast, cheap, fast, quick way of dealing with schools, but not solving any problems. And actually, we are seeing more financial burden, more oversight problems, more legal and jurisdictional issues. And it's really become chaotic, unmanageable, and frankly, at this point, I think it's become rather reckless.
Do you think the motivation for all of this that you're talking about is political primarily, or is it simply people who just are mistaken about what works in education?
You know, I think intent is a hard thing, because I think that there are some really good people who have applied their minds to really thinking through some very difficult issues. But at the end of the day, I think that the fundamental question is, do we have a collective responsibility to ensure that every child in this city has the best education that our community guarantees, and that is through public education. And so many people have choices. You can opt out. We have 86 different charter schools. You can go to private, you can go to parochial. But what we have failed to do is guarantee a quality public school choice.
But can we guarantee that when we have a society in which unfortunately there are parents in prison, or parents who are addicted, or parents who just don't pay attention to their kids? The schools are not isolated, even though they can be protective environments. The kids, however, are coming before and after school with the same mentality they have outside of school. And when you have behavior issues like this, is it something we really can prove that government can take care of, or that the teacher or the principal can take care of if given the proper support?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I would say is, one, a number of schools have shown that they can. So for example, Union City, New Jersey has what they call fortified school systems, where they do a lot of empowerment and wraparound services. And there's been books written about Union City, New Jersey, and the changes that they've done in turning around a school system that has a lot of immigrant youth, a lot of high needs students as well. And the second thing is, I guess I would say, is that when I look at a child who's homeless, or whose families are imprisoned, or who are suffering the most desperate circumstances of their young lives, my question is, how can you not do everything possible for them? How can a society as wealthy as ours not work at its hardest to ensure that those services are available for their schools. The tragedy of poverty is not really that only that people are poor in this city. The tragedy of poverty is that children, 39% child poverty rate in Philadelphia, one of the highest in the country. The tragedy is that they themselves go to schools that are then stripped of resources, that they go to impoverished schools that reinforce the poverty that they face at home or in their communities. The reversal could happen. We could wrap around. We could embrace them with support and services. We have done it before. We've done it, I think, in not as generous and as robust a way as we need to. And other school districts have and turned it around. I think we can too, but I am surprised that so few people feel like the leadership that we have has really walked away from what I think is a fundamental responsibility to children in our society, to our neighbors and our communities, and to building the strongest city that we can in Philly.
Well, give us then the Helen Gem action list. What are the things in 2014, concrete things we should do? What steps?
City Council needs to pass the sales tax exemption. They need to reinstitute a 60% property tax rate. Many people don't realize that actually the percentage of dollars from our property taxes going towards the city schools has actually dropped under the mayor, and that needs to change. We need 60% of our tax money to go directly to our schools. We need to stop the reform train. We need to get off of that immediately. We need to do a moratorium on new schools, innovative things. We need to stop the shiny ball, chasing any shiny thing that comes across our path. We need to focus in on what's working in our school district. We have some great schools in our city. We need to strengthen them. We need to take the ones in the middle and make them better. And we need to shore up the schools that are really struggling. But we need to do that through teaching and learning practices, through support networks that are for them, and we need to follow what other school districts have done that have really turned around schools in a meaningful way, and not just shuffled off and created all these different charter versus public, parochial, whatever. That is really, I think, done a disservice to public ed in Philadelphia.
Helen Gem, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Thank you. Up next, the ongoing battle against what has been known as Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, and one advocate's fight next on In Focus on PHL 17.
Back on In Focus, I'm not Steve Highsmith. ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or Lou Gehrig's disease. In a moment, we'll again meet a young woman who has been living with ALS and a member of the marvelous family surrounding her. How'd I do?
You guys, it's a shame you have no personality and are so quiet and staid.
I know.
You have taken over the program already. This is Karen Delaney Shideleff. This is her sister, Kathy Thomas. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for
Good
having us
to see you
again.
and again and again.
Yes.
And you are Delaney Strong?
Yes, we are Delaney
How's the team
Strong.
doing this year?
Team is doing great, strong as ever, and hoping to raise lots of money again this year between all of the events for ALS.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands
yes.
and thousands of dollars.
I think last year we were over $30,000 that we raised
Yeah,
through several events. So,
combined for the year.
yeah.
Well, folks, what we're talking about is ALS, and ALS is a progressive neurodegenerative disease. It affects about 5,600 people a year who are newly diagnosed in the United States each year. There is no cure or lasting treatment yet, but there is progress in research and ongoing clinical trials. All of that is very important, and our guests in this part of the program know a lot about that. I kid Karen all the time. She's never met a clinical trial she doesn't like.
That's correct.
So, but it's important and you encourage people to volunteer, to get involved, because it makes a difference that this research is happening at a pace that we need to quicken.
Yes, studies have shown that less than 10% of ALS patients participate in trials, whether it's a clinical trial or a clinical study, which the difference is medication versus just studying, genetic structure, DNA, things like that. But Kathy and I recently took a course to become research ambassadors, and we now reach out to ALS patients via presentations at support groups, online, just to encourage them to find out more about the studies that they would be eligible for and to step up participation.
So, Madam Ambassador, how's that going?
So far, so good. We are making the circuit, and what we're finding is a real lack of awareness. And the question that we hear a lot is, well, why haven't we known anything about this? And I said, well, we're doing our part to, to have people know more about it, and so hopefully we're not going to hear that question as much in the future. Yeah. And are making people aware that that the clinical trials, they need people, and without the people, the trials take a lot longer than they should. Because enrollment takes such a long time. It could take years sometimes to get the number of people they need to study to have good data.
And of course, financial support for those trials, for all the research that's going on, for the support services, the ALS Association nationally and here in Philadelphia are great organizations and very active. The Phillies are involved with them for 30 years or so now. You've got Phillies Fest in May. You've got in November the big walks that are going on. That's when Team Delaney is out there in force. I take it you've been walking all these years, correct?
Yes.
Good. And so how many people do you think you're going to be able to get together this year? It's still early.
For November?
For November.
We usually have over 100 on our team, and then the walk itself has thousands.
What effect do you think that these trials to date have been having and this idea of research? Because Karen, one of the things that you talk so eloquently about every time I see you is the hope that is out there, that people need to understand that you're not asking them to do something that isn't achievable. It's just a matter of when. What do you tell people about having hope in this situation?
You know, especially over the last, I'd say 5 to 10 years, the strides that they've made in research about understanding the disease first they've been great. So it's hard. We haven't had a drug developed to slow or to cure ALS, but now they know more targets to aim those drugs at. So it's important to recognize that although we're not seeing anything hit the market for us, there's so much being done behind the scenes that helps develop the drug that will eventually hit the market. So all the drugs that are in trials now, a lot of them are extremely promising. So there is a future, hopefully, with a manageable form of ALS, make it more like MS, or to potentially cure ALS. So yeah, there's hope out there.
And the illness does affect people differently. It doesn't affect everyone quite the same way and at the same rate, which is something else that people, if they go to the ALS Association and talk to them after diagnosis, they can get a lot more of this information in addition to what their physician can give. As a family member who lives with someone in the family that has this, I mean, you're a few miles away from each other, but you grow up in a family, your mother passed away from ALS. What do you tell people about the process that they go through in living with someone who has this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing, when a lot of people are diagnosed, it's such a shock. So I think a lot of people take some time to just, as we say, get their head wrapped around the diagnosis. But we find that being in the ALS community, and advocating and forming friendships and partnerships with different people has just been a huge help in giving you hope and in feeling like you're doing something. Because there's so many things that you maybe can't do, but so you have to focus on what you can do. So I know with our family, like we believe pretty strongly in getting out there and doing everything we can. In our case, whether it's spreading the word and trying to educate people about clinical trials and the need for involvement, whether it's just helping, talking to people at support groups, about those topics, or even like personal conversations we have with people, just let them know what types of services are available for them.
Well, we'll have more with Kathy and with Karen in a moment on PHL 17. Stay tuned. In Focus continues on PHL 17 with Kathy Thomas on the left and Karen Delaney Shideleff on the right on a mission to cure ALS. So the big walk that happens in November. Last November, what, more than $700,000 was raised?
Over $700,000 was raised just in that one walk, that one event, and that goes to patient and family services, which are crucial for the patients in our area, providing in-home care, transportation, respite care, ramping systems. I mean, the scope of things that are offered through the Philadelphia chapter are so great, and honestly, if you want to have ALS, you want to have it in Philadelphia, because we actually are the largest chapter and offer the most amount of support to our patients.
And how's Kathy really been as a sister?
Well, since she's sitting next to me now, she's been awesome. We joke that she's been spending more time at my house than hers with various things. I started aquatherapy, so she takes me to that. I am needing more help at home with just basic, daily activities. So
you were diagnosed in what, February of 2011?
2011. So I just passed my 3-year mark a little while ago, and my family and my friends have stepped up. We do this Lots of Helping Hands website, which the chapter told us about, which really brings in your core group of people to help you with your daily activities, whether it's stretching, bathing, doing the laundry, the dishes. So I do get a lot of help. I'm very fortunate in that I have a great team.
And Kathy, how has Karen been? Is she always this happy off camera?
Believe it or not.
I know she is. You two
Yes.
sing out. You see
Yes.
Neil Diamond
I was
songs
gonna
together.
say, we sing in the car. Our attitude is we're just going to make fun for ourselves, no matter where we go, no matter what we're doing. Like, we can turn anything into a fun time and be positive and enjoy the day.
Well, it's very obviously a wonderful approach that you have and frame of mind on this, but it's very serious, and
Yes.
the message we're trying to deliver, which is one, that ALS is a very serious disease. There are a lot of people working on it, and they need
Yes.
support, and there is hope, and don't lose the hope. It's good to embrace that hope, and
That's correct.
you are great ambassadors for that. And thank you very much for sharing your time with us today and the leadership that you have in the community. It's an honor to be in the same room with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Keep
having
singing
us
Neil Diamond
again.
songs. And that's In Focus for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Steve Highsmith. Enjoy your weekend and have a great week ahead.